look, she can't do the same thing as men. She had to work harder and get there. So she had her struggles. She had her arc, like the hero, the character arc, the hero's arc, the hero's journey. All that stuff was evident there, was evident in Star Wars with Luke Skywalker, was evident in the Terminators films with Linda Hamilton, was evident in Aliens with Sigourney Weaver. So all these films have that. These films nowadays, they tend to avoid that and just show that, well, since everyone is quote unquote equal, the women or any hero, but more often or not now in the last decade is mainly the woman. The female hero shows up and she doesn't have to go through struggles, or they don't have to show it. It's just implied, like, oh yeah, whatever. Now she's a badass, and she's just there. So they don't show a character arc. Captain Marvel had no character arc. Rey in the recent Star Wars trilogy didn't have a character arc. The Mulan in the live action didn't have a character arc. The recent Terminator one, Dark Fate, there was a Hispanic female there that was a hero. She didn't have a character arc. She was just, already bad. So all this, so that's part of the agenda or the obfuscation, I say, is that it's putting in there some of the Satanism, selfishness. It's all about me, me, me. I can do everything. I don't have to go through it's all about you. What was it, like 10 years ago? You go, girl. And that's it. That's all. You just go and do it. Nike, just do it. Just do it. It's like, well, wait, no, you're going to have to, like I said earlier with the fire, you're going to have to put your hand in the fire to live. Oh, shit, this is how things work. There's a reality check. Right now, the obfuscation is you don't need a reality check. You think about doing it, just go do it.
Welcome, one and all. I'm Andy, your host one more time for this Make Art Not Friends interview. I'm joined today by a fellow content creator and a new friend of mine. I feel like I already know him at least a little bit from his kind of official role as the unofficial movie correspondent on What on Earth is Happening, Mark Passio's podcast. And if that is your only awareness of Ivan Oyola, aka Ivan from Phoenix, you are in for a treat as he creates other outstanding content as well. Ivan hosts the Guy Next Door Speaks podcast series, the Sanitizing the Insanity podcast with Joe Murray, and the one I'm really into at the moment, Can You Handle the Truth in Music? Ivan's website, where you can find out about all that he is up to, is freeyourmindaz.com. And you can find his work on the One Great Work Network, onegreatworknetwork.com. So, Ivan, welcome, and thank you for joining me today.
Hey, Andy, thanks for reaching out to me, man.
Yeah.
Glad to be here. And fellow content creator now, all of us here is growing community, One Great Work Network. So, I see your picture. I think you're the first one up there, aren't you? Alphabetically?
I got right lucky that he did it alphabetically by first name. I'm right at the top.
That's right. But man, this looks to be a good time, man. Yeah, I've seen you, I've heard of you and all that stuff. But now finally, face to face, digitally, we're, in the virtual reality world here communicating. But hey, using that technology for some good. So, yeah.
Well, I'm so glad that you were willing to come and join me and just chat. I'm very, very much excited. As I was saying earlier, I kind of got a bug about a month or so ago to reach out to Will Keller of the network and thought I should start talking to as many different content creators as will talk to me, because I just love having these conversations with folks, and I feel like it's great that we're all kind of in one place and there's kind of a lot of different people that are connected on the network. And I really hope to kind of just continue to bring these kind of little pods together, and not that we're, in different camps or anything by any means, but it's just fun for me to meet people and talk to people. And you're one that stood out because one of my passions is art and storytelling, and I think you're pretty into that as well, from the standpoint of looking at movies and music as well. So I'm really glad you were able and willing to come chat with me today. So thank you for that. So let's start out. What can you tell us about what you're working on, other than, well, in more in depth than what I was just talking about? Tell us. I'd like to start with, like, what's exciting to you. What's let's start on a kind of positive note. What is it that you are into at the moment? What's exciting you? What is it that brings your spirit up right now? What's exciting you?
Well, I've always been a movie buff, since the tender age of who knows what. I mean, I was probably 6 years old, 1976. My parents took me to go see Jaws. So think about that one. Hello, trauma. So, 1976 Jaws, 77 Superman, 78 The Warriors. So I've been going to the movies for a long time, and that, quote unquote, made an impression on me. So whether good or bad, but it took me a long time to finally start seeing the positive aspects of film. And who knows, maybe, a lot of that did, shape my beliefs and my lifestyle and way of living and all that. But that was a passion of mine, is films, so I am a movie buff. But, like a lot of us, once we wake up, we start looking at things that fascinated us or that we were passionate about. And most of us, if we do the internal work, shadow work and all the other kind of work, we start putting things into perspective and prioritizing what matters, what doesn't, what's important and all that. And then we can see that things like, art, films, TV, and music, they do have a role to play depending on the consciousness that's using it. So that's always been my passion, was the entertainment. I was, 30, 40 years, sitting there, the popcorn, the soda, and watching the big screen, state of the art, 70 millimeter, 6-track Dolby stereo, and then DTS sound with Jurassic Park. And so now digital projection, 4K. So I'm all about that, So, that being said, once you get control of your life or start trying to apply some freedom, and wisdom, wise dominion, start taking, that and, trying to make some positive use out of it. So instead of watching films just to sit there like a zombie and drool and now you start looking at it like, oh, there's a message here. Oh, look, there's the negativity. Oh, look, here's the positive, and start working with it and put it out there and try and do something good with it. So that's basically where I've been out here the last year or two with some of the most recent podcasts. Before, it was, a lot of the regular great work, talking about anarchy, freedom, and the slavery, ending slavery, and everything else that comes with that. But of late, you can see that films and TV have a lot to do with, the enslavement as well as the way out. And hopefully later on, like I mentioned to you earlier, I have a couple of clips of a couple of TV shows that put it right out there, but the masses are so asleep that it's like, look, here's the answer. It's just a TV show, though. Don't pay attention to it. It's like, no, there's the answer. So yeah, so that's my passion now. And a lot of this, some of it is my work, and some of it I'm assisting others. Like Francesco was the creative force. Francesco Sani, he's also on the One Great Work Network. He's the one that came up with the Can You Handle the Truth in Music? He asked me to help him in that. So we did that. And right now, the movie soundtrack, Full Immersion, that was something else that, he really needed an outlet, because he's over there in Italy. And the last 2 years, with all the global nonsense going on, he needed some kind of escapism. So he was like, hey, let's go ahead and do this movie thing for a few hours and just chill. So I assisted him with that. And that, has grown so far, just like 3 episodes, but they're like long episodes, 4 or 5 hours the first one, 9 hours the second one. And we just finished releasing a 10.5-hour one with our first guest, Douglas Martin. So another member of the content creator of the One Great Work Network. So yeah, so that's what's going on here. And then also I just recently mentioned on this recent movie soundtrack, Full Immersion, talking with Douglas. Douglas came there and he had to bite his tongue because he wanted to elaborate, but it was like, no, we're trying to just chill, but still it's good to talk about. So he kind of fueled my, kind of kicked me in the butt, kind of like, all right, you know what, let me take the Guy Next Door Speaks podcast, which is kind of just sitting there. I don't do too much with it. And let me do a spinoff on that. So now here in the next month or so, I'm looking to come out with Guy Next Door Speaks, and then the 3 periods, ... on film, TV, and music. So that way we can start, like, now you're just a guy next door to someone. I'm a guy next door to someone. Douglas is a guy next door to someone, and we know things. So what happens if we just start speaking about what we know? So we know a little bit about music and film and, TV. So that, could help to start pushing things in the right direction, or at least awaken people.
Yeah.
We can get deep down this quote unquote rabbit hole or truther hole or freedom hole. But yeah, whether people positive, negative, oh, everything's fine, or it's like, dude, the world's coming to an end, man. It's just getting worse. So it just depends where we go. But we got a few hours here, hopefully, to flesh a lot of this out. So hopefully I answered some of what you asked. That's me. That's Ivan. I can just go on and on and on.
You got me excited. You got me excited about everything you were talking about. So yes, cool. I think mission accomplished. Because like I said, I like to start out with like, all right, let's get excited about this talk, and hopefully people listening, people watching, that translates, because, I think a lot of times it's like, oh man, am I really going to commit 2-3 hours, whatever it is, to listen to this thing? And if, there's some excitement, like, oh, these guys are excited about what they're talking about, suddenly that 2 hours doesn't seem quite as long to folks. So
yeah,
that's great. I should have gotten together. I could if I really. I won't. I helped.
Hey,
Douglas.
Use the power of editing. You can use the power of editing.
I helped Douglas Martin set up his content creator blog page on the One Great Work Network, and so I just happened to kind of get assigned to him as part of that onboarding team, and ended up talking to him. That's been about a year now, a few times over the course of a couple of weeks, and I've probably got 5 or 6 books here that he's recommended that have been invaluable. One of which I think is a great book, and I'll go ahead and pull it out because it's at hand, is the 13th edition. It's the 13th edition of Understanding Movies by Louis Giannetti. And I recommend this book, not that, he's out there telling the truth about freedom and slavery and whatnot, but just from the standpoint of like, this is essentially a college level textbook on films. And, I knew a little about, like you, I've been into movies since I was, a little kid, and I did theater years ago and have always had an appreciation for what it takes to create something like this. But, this book really, and there's several different editions. He recommended this 13th edition with Iron Man on it for some nods that it gives towards transhumanism and the melding of with the machine kind of things. But it's just very fundamental about, hey, this is what cinematography does, and how story impacts the movie, and how the different aspects of the medium come into inform the final product. So that's a good book. But then there's a lot of other, he got me into Albert Churchward. Anyway, so he's when you said that he was biting his tongue, I can only imagine how on a 10-hour podcast, even if it was just him talking, there would probably be a lot that he wouldn't really even have time to get into. He has an absolute incredible wealth of knowledge, and I mean, he's been studying this kind of stuff for a long time, from what I understand. So
yep,
very cool.
Even right there, what you were talking about with that book right there, Understanding Movies. I mean, come on, right there. That just 2 words puts things. How are you taking it? Understanding movies, the intention. It's like, oh, this is what they're doing to us. This is understanding movies. Or if you're the filmmaker, understanding movies, how they can be used to manipulate, to control minds, to put ideas out there, to enslave people or to free people, to give them the knowledge, the truth. So again, understanding movies, 2 words can be. We were talking about this before we started recording, huh? What is it? Oh my God, now I forgot the damn phrase. The micro, and the macro. So understanding that's a simple thing can branch into such a huge, concept and huge, topic, understanding movies.
Yeah, absolutely. And
microcosm, macrocosm, there it is.
Yeah. And yeah, there's such a wealth. That's the other thing about movies, is that I love talking to people who are passionate about movies, who enjoy movies, whether they're, you know, like I've made a friend recently who is 21 almost. He's turned 21. He keeps telling me, and, you know, 7 days, 6 days, he keeps counting down. But he's very much into movies, and, you know, he's very, you know, normie. He's young. But just to hear, you know, somebody who's 20 years younger than me, the movies that he's seen that I've never even heard of, and then the movies that I've seen that he's never even heard of, and then the times where there's actually some overlap because his parents are about my age. And so it's like, oh, they've exposed him to this movie or that movie, like Jaws, for example. Anyway, it's just neat to see. There's so many different movies, and it's neat to see how different people approach them and how different people interact with them and how differently people can understand them, and how, you know, takeaways can be radically different from, you know, two people go for the same 90-minute experience. And it's a completely different experience for one person than the other. That's just a fascinating thing to me, and kind of off topic perhaps, but nonetheless,
nope, still on topic. Because look, you said that, and now you got me thinking of, you know, sometimes some people might have an issue with me somewhat quote unquote contributing to the bread and circuses, or submitting to the bread and circuses, because I admit, in the last year or two, I do sit down once in a while with YouTube and I watch the reaction videos. There's a ton of people, everybody and their mother is putting out reaction videos to this TV show. Watch me watch this TV show. Watch me watch this movie, and sit there and watch it. I watch some of these. Some of them I watch and it's just like, okay. But some people, it's very interesting to watch. Like you said, a 20, 21-year-old, to see these young millennials, the conditioning, the programming from the education system, the political situation, the current events, the last 10, 20 years, the programming that's in there. These are all variables that you can pick up on watching these reaction videos. Right. You can see where their morals at, their values are at, where society's heading. When you can, like you said, watch the same hour and a half or 2-hour movie that back in the 70s had a very powerful message. And yeah, you see a millennial or somebody watching now, and they're like, oh my God, that is so, we need to cancel this because look, it had so much toxic masculinity. It had so much deprivation of women. It had so much, you know, whatever, this and that. And you can start seeing like, wow, look at where society is. And that's what these reaction videos, in my opinion, are helpful for, you know, because you can see you're not going to meet everybody that's in your state, in your country, or in the world. But watching these reaction videos, you watch a handful of them and you start getting a general idea of this is what we're dealing with. Right. Because even though there's like 50 plus of us on the One Great Work Network, that's not a snapshot of everybody in the world. When people say, oh, everybody's waking up, they're waking up. No, because the last 5 or 10 years, you've been watching freedom videos or anarchist videos or, you know, truth videos. And you, since you're there and you communicate with people of the same mindset, you think, oh, everything's fine, everybody's waking up. No, you have to look at what everybody else is looking at, where everybody else is at. And now you start gauging like, oh crap, it's only this less than 1% that see things for what it really is. And the other 99% are, you know, freaking a lost cause, or they're really struggling. And it's like, wow, we have our work cut out for us. So bringing it back, that's why I watch some of these reaction videos on YouTube, or maybe one specific on Patreon. And it's like, why are you feeding the bread and circuses? Well, you need to know your environment. You need to know what you're dealing with, because if you totally ignore that, then you're going to be doing work that's meaningless and misguided, and it'll be a waste of time. So that's how I see some of that. So that what you said was, that's pertinent. Learn, you know, knowing what the young generation, what's running, what program is running in their head and how they see things, gives us a better idea of the work we need to do, what we need to pass on to them.
That's an excellent point. And it goes to that idea of, you know, kind of the echo chamber of, you know, the freedom group, you know, I was just talking to one of my podcaster cohorts yesterday about, you know, how the Facebook feed after a while, and I haven't really been that into Facebook until the two of us, he kind of started this Facebook group and asked me if I'd help admin, because he gets kicked off Facebook so often that he needs somebody else just to kind of, with a safe account, because I'm rarely on it. And so I've been on Facebook more in the last couple months than usual. And he said, oh, my, you know, Facebook stream is it's so streamlined. I'm only getting the kind of content I'm looking for. And I'm going, yeah, mine's really gotten that way too. And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, but is that a good thing? I'm missing taking the temperature of everybody else that's not in that echo chamber. And it's that kind of idea that, you can be preaching to the choir, but if you're not out in the street, trying to figure out where people are at and what people need to hear to bring them closer to truth, you're just going to keep preaching to the choir. You're never going to expand your audience. You're never going to get truth out to a wider public. So that's a really good point. And I'm glad you mentioned that about the reaction videos, because one of my guilty pleasures, so to speak, is, and it's kind of parallel to what you were talking about with the reaction videos, is movie lore and movie theories. Particularly, there's a YouTube content creator, his channel is called The Theorizer, and I'm guessing he's early mid-20s, maybe, based on the sound of his voice and kind of like you're saying, the programs that tend to be running for him. And it's really interesting because he'll take like the DreamWorks movie universe and try and plumb the depths and ask questions about what it is that they're trying to tell us, what else is going on behind the scenes, how does this movie tie in with this movie, Toy Story and Up. His theory is that Andy from Toy Story is the grandson of the old guy from Up, and then they're connected to some other movies through family relations, and all this whole DreamWorks universe, for example, is all kind of tied together in one universe. And it's interesting. And the fact that somebody would make, a 2-hour video about that is interesting. But my takeaway more and more that I think about that is, man, this guy is studying so close, he is studying the way this works so close. Imagine if he was applying that kind of critical thinking to actual problems.
Mm-hmm.
But instead, he is of the mindset that, well, I'll just examine, the lore and what are they hiding from us in a DreamWorks movie? Not even hiding from us as far as bigger truth, but hiding the nature of the whole universe that they've created and operating in. So he's studying the occulting of this very small kind of bubble of non-reality that is this universe. And it's like, man, if somebody like that could apply that critical thinking to some actual occulted knowledge. But again, like you said, that's where the programming for a lot of folks that age happens to be. But it's interesting, kind of get myself thinking about, okay, how is it that, and again, as a theater person who did theater, and as a writer, you kind of have to think about, who am I writing for and how do I write for that audience? Because you could make videos that just talk to other, anarchists, other freedom-minded individuals. But if you want to make something that's going to talk to a broader audience, you have to understand at least something about that audience. Yep. And I think, to tie back, that's what the movie industry does so well. Not only do they know their audience, know where a lot of people are at, they're constantly grooming people's worldview, which takes a kind of some next level understanding of psychology to reinforce and reshape at the same time the worldview of a fairly wide swath of people.
Yeah, and in there you throw in the word that, thanks to Passio, now it's always bouncing around in my head, obfuscation, because a lot of these films, what do? They take true things that you can be like, look, it's art imitating life, and now life is imitating art. But to what extent? To the extent that it starts obfuscating stuff. Like I said, the toxic masculinity. So now it's like, look, the evil white man, all toxic masculinity, all this stuff. So what are they doing? Yes, there might be some truth, because who are the ruling elites of the last 500 years? Basically, a lot of men controlling. And so there is a patriarchy. Yeah, there's truth there. But now what gets lumped in there in the last 10, 20 years? Oh, the sacred masculine. Sacred masculine is bad. We need to see. So now it's like, well, there's the obfuscation. They're taking some truth, and now they've blended in with other lies and deceptions, and now nobody knows what's really going on. And now that, leads to solipsism. It's like, well, you can't really know because it's all a lie. Well, no, not everything's a lie, but there's lies here. So hence, there's a lack of the trivium or what is it? The illogical fallacies go out the window because, if this was a lie and this was a lie, just keep going. Everything else is like, no, now you got to be able to, that's not all guilty by association. It's not generalization. So yeah, it's a lot of stuff going on that, Hollywood Hollywood or the mainstream, they play on. And that's what part of our work is. And I think Douglas brought that up in this last show we did about what is our work. Is it something just to show what's going on, to illustrate it, or to show people the how, for them to be able to recognize it themselves and be like, oh, okay, I could still enjoy the music, the TV show, and the films without letting it go in and infect me and, bring that virus in me. No, recognize it for what it is and then work with them. Be like, look, this is here to do this to you. Don't let it. And now you can recognize it and pass this on to others so that we're all start getting on the same page. So, yeah.
Yeah, because that's ultimately what, the great work is about. It's not about saying, all right, everybody follow me and think the way that I'm thinking and it's here. I can teach you how to think for yourself. I can not even teach you, but show you the ways, show you the tricks and techniques and give you the techniques, give you the tools to do that for yourself. I always go back to the similarities between martial arts as physical self-defense and critical thinking as intellectual self-defense. You're not saying, all right, stand behind me and I'll protect you. It's let me give you the techniques where someone is attacking you intellectually, so to speak. You're able to recognize that, first of all, recognize it as an attack. And second of all, know how to deal with it, know how to counter, know how to move that energy in a different direction, or, put a stop to it in some way, shape, or form where it doesn't end up, like you say, infecting you, where the virus doesn't come in, where the attack doesn't actually land. The exact same way that, martial arts, it's not about just, oh, well, I just will destroy that person. It's as much as anything about whatever they're trying to do, make sure it doesn't land at you, redirect it, deflect it, whatever it is. But, ultimately it's not saying stand behind me, I'll protect you. It's, I will give you the tools so you can protect yourself.
Right. Even simpler. It's like the thing with fire. Just because I know putting my hand in fire will burn, I'm not going to go around and put everybody else's hand in fire, or protect everyone. I know that putting your hand in fire is bad, so I'm going to keep everybody's hands out of the fire. It's like, no, you show them like, look, fire burns. I did it. No, okay, go ahead. You learn? Okay, now tell him, tell her, tell him, tell her. Everybody knows. So it's not a thing. See, all of you know what I know thanks to me and my capes flapping in the wind. No, it's I know truth. I learned truth through experience, and I'm helping you learn truth. So it's not a thing that, oh, now you're all thinking like me. That came up in one of the meetups years ago. Oh, you want us all to think like you. It's not a matter of thinking like me. If you know that fire burns and that's a truth, and keep your hands out of fire, it's the right thing to do. How is that thinking like me? It's about everyone doing what's right. So yeah, it's very, very interesting. It's simple, but yet people just convolute. Or again, there's the obfuscation. Oh, he's telling me what to do because it's right. Oh, so he's the boss of me. He thinks he knows. Like, oh my God, where do people come up with this crap? Yep.
It reminds me of a quote that I was actually just discussing yesterday, from one of my favorite thinkers, American thinkers, who it seems nobody's aware of, unfortunately, but his name is Charles Sanders Peirce, and he was active in the late 1800s. I think he died around 1920. But he has a quote that I always love and I think is relevant, which is, the idea does not belong to the soul. The soul belongs to the idea. I'm not trying to trap you into belonging to, if I get you trapped in the idea that I have, now I'm going to, you're going to be beholden to me, but rather, because the idea doesn't then belong to you. It doesn't belong to somebody. You belong to the idea, and good, bad, or otherwise. If you hold on to that idea so tightly, thinking you own it, it belongs to you, what really it is you are selling yourself into the idea one way or for good or bad or otherwise. But the idea doesn't belong to the person. The idea doesn't belong to the soul. The soul belongs to the idea, and the idea is primal. The universe is mental, not the thinker. Everything is mental, including every thought is a thought, including the thought of the thinker and all. But anyway, so that Charles Sanders Peirce quote popped up yesterday, popped up again today because I brought it up. But yeah, it's not about, as Mark said in some of his presentations, particularly that, oh, I joke with my friends, oh, Mike, you could start a cult. Well, yeah, but that's, why wouldn't I do that? Because that's the exact problem, is that everybody's going around thinking, oh, if I hoard these ideas, I can, get people to follow me. And it's about inspiring. And that's something that art does well, is when used correctly, is it can go out and say, okay, now you've got a little spark. Now you go spread ideas and you go spread truth to other people and do so in such a way where they're a spark to go spread
or the cult of the de-occultist.
The cult of the de-occultist. Yeah. Like my decentralized public secret society that I started, which may have a worldwide network. I don't know. It's decentralized. I have no idea who's a part of it. No idea, but it's out there. Anyway.
But you know what? That's funny. You say that you don't know who's out there, but in a roundabout way, if the knowledge, if like the cult of the occultists were to be out there, freedom people, somewhere down the line, you might come across someone in a store or just somewhere, and in a conversation and a look and an expression of something, be like, oh, there's someone else that gets it. You see the me inside of you. It's like, I see, oh, we're there. See, and yeah, that's the beautiful thing, of there's a free soul, I'm a free soul, so I see my free self in them,
Yeah. Robert Anton Wilson wrote a novel called Masks of the Illuminati, which is a great novel. He's got such a playful writing style, and and they're so occulty, they're just, anybody who's into this stuff, I think his novels, say what you want to about the man, but I think there's a lot of fun, especially for people who have already have some understanding about his novels and how they're written. But in the Masks of the Illuminati novel, basically the main character is going through this initiation into the occult. And he's got somebody who's kind of initiating him and telling, but he's not allowed to know who else is in the secret society that he's supposed to be joining. But within the first couple, meetings of this, getting initiated, he's now walking around going, this person could be in the secret society and I would not know it. Oh, that person said something. Oh, maybe they're in it. And yeah, it goes to what you're saying. And it's a neat thing in that novel, the way that story is told, it does a good job. Once you get to a certain point, you're looking around going, wait, is this person, does this person know about this? Does this person know about anarchy and freedom and know that we're living in a slave world? Maybe they do, maybe, and yeah, you never know who's in the know until, you get to talk about the ideas with them, get to share experiences and such. So.
And you got me thinking that also goes in the negative aspect too. Absolutely. Because like I remember Bob Tuskin, he would talk about in Florida or somewhere that he'd be driving around and he had his father's vehicle, or he had a sticker, a logo, Freemasonic, the Freemasons logo he had on his car. And he would notice that when a cop car will pull him over or something, and then they'd see that, like, oh, okay, never mind. Hey, how you doing? You good? Okay. And let him go. I was like, see? So again, it could be the negative thing. It's like, oh, here's people with some quote unquote negative knowledge of secret society. And we're like, okay, we're the ones that get away with stuff. Someone else who isn't in that secret society, now we come down hard on them, screw them, but if you're one of us, you're cool. See, so even though it could be in the positive freedom, anarchy, love, growth thing, you can also have the negative, fear-based and tyrannical kind of like, back the blue, all that kind of crap. So
there was I don't know if you remember the show News Radio. This will be an interesting tie-in from the late 90s, but Joe Rogan got his start playing this always cracks me up. It just jumped in my mind. He played the technician, kind of janitor, but really more the technician at this radio station that they all worked at. And so Joe Rogan's character, and I think the character was called Joe, is the tech guy, but he's also a conspiracy theorist. He's also the conspiracy theorist in the show. And he's always, oh yeah, the government, oh yeah, blah, 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 aliens, JFK, whatever. Well, he helps the owner of the radio station, Jimmy James, played by Stephen Root, in this court battle that I don't remember what the nature of it was, but they had to go to court. And the Joe character saying, "Oh, don't worry, Mr. James, you just have to know the right words because all these judges are part of a secret brotherhood." And the word that they use to get off the hook is tubal cain. And so they're just in court, and Joe just goes, "Tubal cain." And the judge is like, "Case dismissed." And so it always just cracks me up that Joe Rogan essentially gets a start playing a conspiracy theorist on this somewhat obscure 90s TV show anyway. But then the whole point being, even there, it's seeding the idea that maybe these guys in robes are all part of some fraternal society in some way, where there is some secret nod, wink, handshake that can get the people that know the nod, the wink, and the handshake out of parking tickets or speeding violations because they've got the right insignia on their car.
Damn, now you made me connect something perfect with that. I don't know if you've seen the film La La Land.
Yes.
You did. Remember one of the not the first, but maybe like the second or third song in there when Emily Stone's, it is Emily, right? Stone? No, Emma Stone's. When Emma Stone, she's gets to her apartment, whatever, with her roommates, and they're telling her, "Come on, let's go to the party," and she's like, "No, I don't want to go." And they start breaking out into a song. And what's the name of that song? The theme of that song is about is someone in the crowd the only one you think it is? So someone in the crowd may be the one to put you in a movie. So it's not your skill, it's not your talents, it's someone in the crowd. So it's like who you know. Right. So there you go. See, so it's like, well, I don't know the police officer, I don't know the judge, but if you know them, guess what? Hey, smooth sailing. So it's interesting. Now you triggered that idea because recently I threw that on with Francesco. We saw La La Land, and I was picking up on a few things, and now I was like, yeah, there it is, Hollywood. Yeah. It doesn't matter, you can be the most talented person, whatever. If you don't know the right person, 9 times out of 10, you ain't gonna make it. But it depends. Someone in the crowd might be the person, be like, hey, here, I'm the executive whatever of this studio here. I look what I saw. Come on, so interesting.
And trigger warning for those people who are so inclined. I think that explains Nicolas Cage's whole career, because he's been in some fun movies, but guy can't really act. But he's a Coppola, so he gets preferential treatment. Anyway, that's neither here nor there.
And it depends what you act in. But then again, didn't he get an Academy Award? Was it either Leaving Las Vegas, or was it Moonstruck? Also, he was nominated or something. Maybe, or Cher did it. But then some films is like you don't need to act. Just get there, say the lines, and punch people, jumps and scream and shoot the gun. Con Air, Face Off. It's like, hey, get in there, So it's like George Carlin says, sometime in the future, people dumb down so much. You just, hey, here's a pen, get in there. It's trigonometry. It's like, it's like just a pen. That's all you need. Just get in there.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, but the whole, who and how often you hear the stories, around Hollywood. Oh, so and so is just discovered they were sitting by a pool, or they were at a party and somebody, just discovered them. Even that, whether it is just I think this person has a good look or whatever, it comes back to who you know. It's not like after rigorous auditions and honing their craft as an actor, they were able to get the right person to look at them and say, you really do have talent. It's just like, no, you have a look that I arbitrarily decided on, and your talent, we'll figure that out. But all right,
getting back on track. If there was any track, if there were any tracks.
I think we can circle back to that. But let's go. Okay, so let's jump to this then. Well, we kind of started general with kind of just movies generally. We mentioned some specific stuff, but I want to talk quickly about something slightly more specific, but still kind of general and foundational, fundamental to not just movies, but how people interact with them and how maybe we as the general public are supposed to interact with them. And it's kind of the reason I reached out to you at the time when I did, was you had shared a video from YouTube. I can't remember the name of the content creator, but he sounded Scottish.
The Critical Drinker.
Critical Drinker, that's the one. and it was basically about the deplorable state of modern movies. And he in that video is talking about how heroes no longer have to work, no longer have to like earn it, but are kind of born with it and even really entitled to being great. You know, it's just they were just born that way. And the example that he gave in that video is the newer live action Mulan, which I didn't see, versus the 90s animated Disney version, which I did see years and years ago. But essentially he makes the point that in the first Mulan, the character has to work extra hard and train extra hard because of physical differences between some of the more physically capable people and those who are probably have been in military service, you know, and have done the training. And she's coming brand new to this, smaller person, smaller build, less musculature, etc., and having to really work hard to get to the point where she can keep up. Versus in the new Milan, it's like she just shows up on day one and she can hit a bullseye from 100 meters and throw a spear and do whatever it is required of her. So I guess the question that I want to ask you, based on that video, is, are movies like this, and there's probably lots of other good examples, giving kids specifically and people just in general a skewed perspective on life? And if so, or if not, how so, and why should we care if movies are doing that?
All right, interesting. Yep. Okay, get ready to sit here for another 2 hours now with this.
I'm here. I got nothing going on.
Yeah, me neither. No, but yeah, that was very interesting because, again, this is where some of the obfuscation comes in. Because, yes, that example with Mulan, Mulan, one important glaring identifier that you didn't touch on, because today's society, we don't do that, was, well, she was a girl going into the military where it's all guys, all men. So she went in, and like you said, the guys, sorry, but men are built a certain way as opposed to women. And this film, they explored that. Like, look, she can't do the same thing as men. She had to work harder and so she had her struggles. She had her arc, like the hero, the character arc, the hero's arc, the hero's journey, all that stuff was evident there, was evident in Star Wars with Luke Skywalker, was evident in the Terminators films with Linda Hamilton, was evident in Aliens with Sigourney Weaver. So all these films have that. These films nowadays, they tend to avoid that and just show that, well, since everyone is quote unquote equal, the women or any hero, but more often than not now in the last decade is mainly the woman. The female hero shows up and she doesn't have to go through struggles, or they don't have to show it. It's just implied, like, oh yeah, whatever, now she's a badass. And she's just there. So they don't show a character arc. Captain Marvel had no character arc. Rey in the recent Star Wars trilogy didn't have a character arc. The Mulan in the live action didn't have a character arc. You know, the recent Terminator one, Dark Fate, there was a Hispanic female there that was a hero. She didn't have a character arc. She was just, you know, already bad. So all this, yeah. So that's part of the agenda or the obfuscation, I say, is that it's putting in there some of the Satanism, selfishness. It's all about me. I can do everything. I don't have to go through any. It's, you know, it's all about you. You know, what was it, like 10 years ago? You go, girl. You go, girl. And that's it. That's all. You just go and do it. Nike, just do it. Just do it. It was like, well, wait, no, you're going to have to, like I said earlier with the fire, you're going to have to put your hand in the fire to know, oh, shit, this is how things work. There's a reality check. Right now, the obfuscation is you don't need a reality check. You think about doing it, just go do it. And here's where I think in a deeper spiritual obfuscation goes, or where the deeper obfuscation is or lies or lives in, is kind of a belief or an idea or a knowing that I've kind of had for a while, that it's very difficult to prove or to get people to align with this thought or this truth that, yes, we all have the right to anything and everything because we exist. And I mentioned this a few podcasts ago, sometime last year, that is very deep and very kind of difficult to explain. that the thing about earning, everything has to be earned. You have to go through trials and tribulations. Like, yeah, to an extent, that's true. However, that's part of the obfuscation too, because every living being like us living, we were gifted life, be it through our mother, but more realistic through the all. I mean, our mother, yeah, she was the vessel, but yet we were given life. So the biggest thing for existence, we were given freely. Who are we paying for life? We're not. We're alive. We have it. That's it. So everything else that exists that we do should come with that same price tag. Free. Just do, because you're alive. You were created, and that's it. It's a gift. So everything else we do should be a gift. So we are, quote unquote, entitled. And that's another word that's been negative now. Entitled. Well, no, if you're alive, then, this is all part of love, God's expansive force, the all. This is it. So I know this kind of doesn't make sense to some people, but it ties into, the hero's journey, that people just automatically have it. And it's been obfuscated to look like a bad thing. Like, oh, all these people, Luke Skywalker struggled. All like, nah. However, that was for the dramatic effect or the telling of a story, of a journey. But yet right now, all that has been cut and just like, oh, look here, you were born and you're perfect. You have it all. Like, no, in a roundabout way, people just still need to work at themselves and, develop strength and all this stuff. But it's kind of being, done satanically with that selfish thing. It's like, it's all about you. You deserve it all. And no matter what, it's like, it's very sensitive or delicate, in my opinion, where when they do that in film, because that's sending a kind of mixed message. What I was talking about, yeah, you're alive and this is a gift. So everything in life should be a gift, and what we do should be a gift. And so everything should be how we say with the anarchist community, right? It's what is it? What's that term? Sometimes I get brain farts. It's not sharing, but voluntarious. So we just do without any expectations. So the movies is putting out like, oh, look, you're entitled to everything, no matter what, to being the best just because. It's like, not really. You still got to fucking develop skills and work hard at it. That in that aspect, that's where the obfuscation is. They're making it look like, nope, you're just born and you have all the strength, the knowledge and everything, and you're just about it. No, now that applies to the real world where, like, no, being alive, yes, we are entitled to everything because, look, we don't have to work for the air. The water flows. We just need to gather it. The fruits and everything's just growing from the trees. And, so everything's there for us. But now the obfuscation is when it comes to, your satanic self, as far as you can do everything and be everything just because you go girl or you go boy. And so that hopefully, I know a lot of people like Ivan's all over the place here. It's kind of difficult to explain, I think, because it's so muddied and so well obfuscated that's what these films are doing, that they just make it look like everybody's entitled to be the best and get everything. Like, yeah, there is truth there because we're part of the all. We're part of God. We all are aspects of God. So yeah, we deserve everything. If we, not that deserve it kind of like, oh, he has a Mercedes, I want that Mercedes. It's like, no, we deserve it. If the technology exists to make the best, hemp vehicle, solar powered, that does non-harm to the environment, made to the best ability, and it was made here, everybody should be able to access that way. See, that's what I mean, that everybody's entitled to everything because we're all part of the same. But they're making it, they take that concept and they mess with it in their sorcerer's ways to start, oh, this confused Satanism, satanic thoughts of selfishness, and make it like, oh, me, fuck everybody else kind of thing. That's how I see some of this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I came across recently a lecture that was called The Occult Art of Law. And it was, from what I understand, kind of spontaneously given lecture. I think he was planning on talking about it, but not at the exact time that he did. He was this guy, he's English, Alan Salisbury. He was at a lecture for somebody else, but the lecturer didn't show up. And so he was in the crowd and they were like, hey, would you just go ahead and talk?
I remember that. That sounds familiar.
It's very good, but he talks about the idea of given versus granted. and you're given certain things, you're given life, and there's no expectation for remediation. There's no expectation for you're given life, therefore you owe your mother X, Y, and Z. You're given the ability to breathe the air, therefore, there's no necessary like remediation. Whereas with a grant, it's like, look, I will grant you this thing, but there's the expectation that you're beholden. And that's kind of more of a legal and financial commercial concept. But since you are given the ability to work with the earth, you are given the ability to create, given the ability to harness, given the ability to use tools, given the ability to steward resources, you can use that given ability to go earn certain things. But the idea of entitlement is that it's given to you, and whether you realize it or not, it's granted to you, not given to you. I should say it's granted to you, and whether you realize it or not, since it's granted to you, somebody is now expecting something from you later. And that's kind of the trap that I see with, oh, give me universal basic income. No, it's granting you something that you didn't earn, and somebody down the line is going to come and collect on that. Somebody's
kind of like stimulus checks. Did I say that?
Exactly.
Oh, sorry.
And we're seeing that, we're giving out thousands of dollars, and now suddenly the dollar isn't worth anything, and people think, oh, prices are going up. No, the value of the dollar is going down because you were granted all this stuff, and now it's time to pay it back, as opposed to the way that you use what you are given to earn is that you are paying it in the first place in order to earn it. It's not like you're taking this and then you have to pay something back. It's you're paying something, your time, attention, energy, paying to earn it, as opposed to granted and then paying later. So that's one of the obfuscation things. And as something that I saw, I was fortunate enough to have parents that were like, you're going to be out on your own. You should probably not give in to the temptation to get a credit card, even though everybody that's going off to college at your age are the parents, oh, get a credit card, it'll be for emergencies and don't think too much about it. I was fortunate enough to be, raised by some folks that told me, hey, if you get a credit card, at some point you're going to be paying back way more than you would had you just earned it in the first place. So that was very foundational for me, and has helped me kind of keep that perspective of what have I been given and how do I use that to earn versus what have I been granted, and what am I going to have to do with what I have been given in order to pay that back, probably multiple times over at some point in the future when probably it's least convenient for me. And anyway, but that's an excellent point.
Yeah, that and some of the words you used there opened up a couple of other words, how the obfuscation works. How they say the negative way is, oh, pay it forward. But there's using that word pay. See that, pay. Whereas, what's that Christian Christ-like phrase or whatever? Do unto others as you wish to have done unto you, kind of thing, So it's, you receive this, you don't owe anybody for what you receive, but don't be satanic and selfish and be like, oh no, somebody get it's all. No, you got something and now you just do so others can get. See, so it's that paying forward, but the obfuscation is you throw the term pay. So pay, work for, earn. It's no, you didn't earn it, doesn't pay. And it starts muddying, getting into that legalese language of all that, where, no, this comes, you enjoy it, you utilize it or whatever, but you don't hoard it. Now you just pass it on to others. Yeah. And that's it. It's that fluidity. There's that unity. There's that, it's all based on love. It's expansive. You got it. And now you pass it on to someone else. And that's it.
Well, that ties in with something that I had written down and was thinking about when you were talking about, these characters like Mulan again, kind of being entitled and just, skipping over the whole doing to gain and just being given or born with some superior ability that's not really realistic. It made me think that, and I don't know how familiar you are with Frederick Douglass and the story of Frederick Douglass, but if they were to make a movie about the life of Frederick Douglass now, in that vein, it made me think, would they just skip over the part where somebody did unto him and taught him how to read? Would they just skip over that and just you would see a movie where he's just always been able to read, and he didn't have to work at it, and nobody had to come and say, look, let me give you this technique, let me give you this skill. It would just be, he shows up at the movie and he already knows how to read, because we can't have people realizing that they can go study and learn and make themselves better. It's no, he was just born like that. And that's why Frederick Douglass was great, because he was just born. He just knew how to read. Don't think about that being the pivotal moment in his life. And so it'd be interesting to me in the modern, social justice warrior context, to make a Frederick Douglass movie and a freed slave that came to talk on all these great concepts about freedom, as limited as a social justice warrior has of that concept. But I almost think that they would have to make a movie in which that whole him being taught to read by somebody else who wanted everyone's life to be better by teaching a slave to read, they would have to skip over that almost.
Well, that shows another element that's intentionally being held from people, or concept. They wouldn't want to show people. You just, now listening to you made me think of this, like, look, this is probably why this is done. This is how you keep from teaching people, or from having people learn about consequence, cause and effect. No, it just is. It just is. See, it just is. That's why these people just pop up. No, if you're going to show people consequence of cause and effect, this is how things happen. Oh my God, you teaching people part of a trivium there,
Yeah.
the garbage in, garbage out, or, you get the information in and then you get the knowledge out. So all this kind of stuff, that's how you keep people from this, knowledge is no, it just is. Don't worry about learning, the causal factors, because, oh my God, now they could figure shit out. So that's a way of keeping them away from that. That's probably why these movies are like this. Don't show, the before and after. Just show them, no, this is how it is. The present, boom, just drop them into the present. Like, wait, what? Douglas Adams just knew fucking, or,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's
interesting.
That's a really good point. I hadn't thought about it in that term, consequentialism, and
that's how I heard it. I was like, wait a minute, yeah, you're right.
That's exactly the heart of it, I think, is the ultimate obfuscation, or one of the main concepts to be obfuscated by that technique, is that you have control over the plane of causality if you choose to act at that level. Whereas most of these movies, it's, most of these stories, most of these narratives are just about, how can I rearrange the plane of effects?
Mm-hmm.
And that never changes anything, except, now this deck chair on the Titanic is on this side of the boat instead of that side of the boat.
Oh, big kind of worms that get opened up with that now, because now responsible, it just is how it is. Because why? They never told you, like, no, look, as a cause and effect, you behaving, thinking, believing as you did brought you to where you are now, and is going to take you in a certain direction. That's a macrocosm picture.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're able to cut all that out and keep it in a microcosm, like, nope, you're right here, you're special, you were born, you have everything all that is, was, and ever shall be is right there. Yay. See, there's some truth in there. Yeah, in the present, yeah, we are all that is, has been, ever. But how? How? Why? What's the before? What's the after? No. That now starts, weakening the control system, because now people can take responsibility. Like I said earlier, free dominion and wise dominion. But if it's just, oh, you're free and you're wise, okay, that's it. Yeah, I'm special. Like, no. Where did it come from? How did it get there? How can that be taken away? How can that be improved upon? How can we share that? No, don't ask those questions. You just, boom, you're right here. Now live it up. It's like, So I think we stumbled upon something there. See?
Well, that's and I thinking of it in terms of cause and effect. Really, I think you hit it on the head there, and so that kind of leads a little bit into another kind of avenue of the way that movies and I say movies, and I think my focus a lot of times is on movies, even though I'm a big fan, as somebody who writes a lot and reads a lot. I really like stories that are written, but I feel like the main medium of the narrative of storytelling, it used to be thousands of years ago, according to the history, that everyone would get around the campfire and somebody would tell this oral story. Now we have movie theaters. The campfire is the projector. The darkened room is the night around the campfire, and we're all sitting listening to somebody tell us the story in a way that's not just inside of our imagination completely, but more than anything, externally visualizable. And so, movies, I mean storytelling generally, but movies kind of is the main medium for storytelling in our current day. But for me, something that storytelling and movies have always and increasingly have done is really take that personalizing, okay, here's the thing, go learn it and go practice it, and make it something else that only people on the screen do. And I think of superhero movies especially, and to tie in with somebody who kind of had it all, and in certain movies has had a little more kind of gifted to him. I think of Batman as somebody who, in some Batman stories, you see him having to go through suffering. I think it was the first Christian Bale, where he's off in Tibet and he's having to learn, and he's in the prison or in China or wherever. And he's kind of having to get broken down and suffer and learn about how to be in such a way that he can provide positive change in the world around him. Whereas some Batman stories, he's just amazing. He's just amazing. He's just a rich white guy that's amazing. And yeah, he doesn't have Superman's, inborn strength, but he's got the money to make it so that doesn't really matter. And that ties, the question I'm kind of pivoting towards is, how much do you think it is incumbent upon people, and how much do we take for granted maybe that these stories that we see or are told, these shining, campfire stories that we're told on the movie screen, are a substitute for our need to actually go act in the world, when you can go experience the hero's journey and not have to do any part of it, because you can just sit there and get the dopamine hit of actually being a hero by sitting in a darkened theater. How much do I have to save the people around me when, first of all, I don't do that. I don't have a rubber suit. That's for superheroes. How much of that, how much of this is a tool just to get us to completely not think about it, taking actual positive action in the world?
I think you answered it yourself right there. The dopamine hit, that's one thing, because you feel good watching it, but it is that living vicariously through. You live vicariously through experience. Like how many times people love watching The Matrix, bring down the Matrix, the system, and Star Wars, Against the Empire, and Hunger Games. All these movies live vicariously through that. And people do get, like you said, that dopamine where it's like, yay, that little cheer, yay. Whereas, okay, yeah, for 2 hours you experience that. Now you can go about being a regular slave and go punch in and make your money to go. And that's it, but nothing's really being done. But you fulfilled some of that dopamine, and that's that separation from reality, that art imitating life and life imitating art. No imitation going on. It's just that separation. That's just having you, reality is one thing. And then the way reality should be, you'll see that on the screen. You're like, look, the good guy or the good people, the rebellion against the evil tyrants and the empire. Yay. But keep that separate from reality, and a few of us that do, we're like, excuse me, like Kirk in Star Trek V, excuse me, what does God want with the starship? But, it's the few people that ask the question, oh, crazy conspiracy theories, I'll get out of here. And recently, Larkin Rhodes just released earlier today or last night, excellent video on that. What was it? What was the name of it? I'll have to look it up. But yeah, Larkin Rose, he recently released a video that kind of touches a bit on that. It's like 18 minutes long, and him just talking to the camera and talking to the people. But it's like that thing about being the teller. If you want to know, why these people back through history allowed these things to happen, and like, where would you stand? Like, well, I would never. Well, these last 2 years show exactly what kind of person you would be. You'd be just like them, So, yeah. So I bring that up because, again, there's that separation thing of people that claim to know right from wrong, and they can identify it in the movie. But then when it comes to reality, well, that was just in the movies. It's like, what? There's not necessarily an obfuscation, but there's the satanic inversion. So reality is going on in the movie, people doing somewhat right things in the movie, whereas in real life, it's like, we don't do that here. You got to obey the law, the cop, just call the police, just listen to your president, your pope, to your Wall Street financial advisor, listen to these guys. That's the reality. Whereas all that is the bad stuff, the negative stuff that keeps us enslaved. But yet the movies, they'll drop some real truth in there as to look, rebel, challenge it, good wins over evil and all that stuff. But in the real world, you're living in the movies, man. What's wrong with you? So that's what I say there.
Well, and how do we get people? I don't think there's a simple answer to this question, but I'm asked the question like there is a simple answer. How do we get people to identify that these stories are allegorical because they're meant to signal you towards, hey, this is an action you can take, or this is a modality of thought that you can stand in order to be like this person in your corner of the world. I mean, because I think originally that was the whole point of telling these stories around the campfire, was to get people, hey, these stars up here, this one represents the bear, and this one represents the lion, and they fight, and here's what happens, and here's what the whole reason that we're talking about that is because you have these aspects inside you, and you can use these aspects to inform and affect your world. And now it's to the point where it's only external. These stories have no internal connection. Is there any way to, simply help people to realize they're allegories because you can apply these principles?
This ties a little bit, I guess, then to something we were talking about earlier with the fire, that me putting my hand in the fire, like, oh, I learned that. And then you show others. So again, it's like that, where why do you watch movies? Look, entertainment is there because it's holding your mind. It's holding, the books, they told stories and people would escape into their imagination with that, but yet they would extract truths, and they had some of the critical thinking where they can connect those dots, be like, wow, this person is subtly conveying an idea in this book through this story, but it resonates with what's happening in the world. We need to do this in the real world. People were able to connect that. But now, over the last 50 to 100 years, with the dumbing down of the people, like I said, the separation, where people can't make that connection of like, wait, this book, this song, this movie, this TV show is telling us something. But what? I don't get it. It's just there to entertain me. Like, no, that's where the hand in the fire, like, no, look, watch it again. Listen to what he said. Now look in the world. Do you see a correlation? Oh, yeah, I see it. Okay. Not see that it's telling you we need to resist. It's telling you not to comply. It's telling you that good and evil exist in the world. See, and that's the thing, that it's just a matter of gradual little baby steps, incrementally, that we can't just take them and throw them out there, go, just go and do it. It's like, but why? What? Again, It falls into that consequentialism of, we're just throwing them in there. Okay, resist, just go fight. But why? I don't know why. Who am I fighting? Why? Is it right? Is it wrong? It takes a big picture. It takes a macrocosm for them to know cause and effect. And look, the movie is showing you this. The TV show is telling you this. The music's telling you this. This is the bigger picture. And you just, the training wheels. And, oh, okay, I get it. And now you let them go. And they're like, oh, I see it in the world. Okay, now what you just did, what we did for you, now you do for others. Now you teach them. And that's when you get critical mass. And then everybody's thinking that was like, hey, wait a minute, screw this, mask wearing, the hell out of here with that. What, mandated vaccine? Get the hell out. See, that's how I would suggest that's how it works.
Yeah.
That's how it could work, but it's going the other direction. That little cookie cutter thing that, it's all about you. You're special. You're special. This damn conspiracy theory guys with podcasts, they're so selfish. Look, they just want to hear their own voices. They just like hearing themselves talk. Really? That's where you're at? Even Pastios is dressed at don't matter. What I'm wearing isn't important. How I sound isn't important. What I'm saying, the content I'm putting out, what I'm talking about is what matters. But people have been programmed to like, I don't like bald guys. He's bald. Well, he's got a beard. I don't like guys with beards. I don't trust guys with beard. Wait, So that's what you took away, the words that we said for 1, 2, 3 hours. You didn't pay any attention to that and connect like, well, you know what, even though I don't like their voice, how they look or whatever, what they said, that was pretty important. No, not programmed to like, oh, they turned me off, I need to cancel them, I don't like how they looked. Like, what?
Yeah. And it always makes me laugh when people come to the idea that, oh, podcasters are just there because you like the sound of your own voice. You're like, it's I certainly have felt this way, and I'll tell a little vignette about Mark, and it's out there, so it's not like I'm telling something that he hasn't shared publicly, but he doesn't share it, I don't think, enough. Mark really likes bowling. I don't know if you know this, heard this about Mark. Mark really likes bowling. I think if there was anything that he would rather be bowling at any given time than sitting in his apartment working on troubleshooting this computer program or that hardware issue or the problem with this camera, the problem with that mic, any of that stuff. He would rather be bowling than doing any of that. And I think for pretty much every podcaster that is really trying to get this message out, get the message of truth and freedom out, it's not because we want to talk. If I wanted to just hear my own voice, there's a million things I could talk about, and most of those things would have a much broader viewership, much broader listener base, because they would be less challenging for people. But even then, there's so many things I'd rather be doing. We don't do this to hear the sound of our own voice. I don't do this anyway. I should speak for myself. I do this because hopefully in doing this, I will be able to get to the point where enough people understand this that I can be just thinking up stories, just sitting outside with a senseless novel that isn't really gonna make the world a better place, but it's going to be enjoyable for me to read. But instead, I'm doing this. This is the opportunity cost, and I accepted that, and I'm fine paying that. But something so that's for people who are skeptical. And if you've made it this far and are still skeptical about who we are and what we're doing, hopefully that clears things up. But this is to go back a little bit. Something that you had mentioned brought up something, or something you were talking about brought up something that I've talked about on the Make Art Not Friends podcast in the past, which is particularly this idea that, and it kind of comes from my reading and understanding of Marshall McLuhan's work about the growing medium of television and film. But the idea that even 100 years ago, particularly 200 years ago or thereabouts, the 1800s, people would have interactions with art. People would have interactions with a dedicated narrative experience. Once, twice, if you're really well off, 3, 4, 5 times a year. But most of the rank and file folks, maybe once a year, you would have an experience with a dedicated narrative environmental experience. Once a year, you might have the traveling minstrel show come through and have a night where you're going through this cultivated experience of music, of storytelling. Maybe once a year, you'd have enough to go to see a play in a theater, go see an opera, go see the symphony. And that's really, the top 50% or less of a society that would be able to do that. I mean, there's places in the world right now where people don't have, even with the ubiquity of technology, people don't have access to watching a TV show, watching a movie with any regularity whatsoever. And I think part of what you were getting to that made me think of this was the idea that there's so little time, especially in the modern binge watching mentality, where you're going to watch 15 seasons of Battlestar Galactica in a weekend and do nothing else, including sleep, that whole time. And you're not going to have the ability to say, this was such a unique experience for me. first of all, I'm going to continue to play it back in my mind and continue to think about it. But then I'm going to continue to apply these things that I saw and how do the characters interact with the world? How do the people around me interact with the world? Now I'm thinking in terms of how this affects my life and putting it in perspective of the way that I go about perceiving the world. And so when these experiences with this cultivated narrative are so just all the time, there's always another episode, there's always another movie. When do you take the time to do where did I write it down? To do the reflective action of consciousness, which is the psychological term for praying. When do you take time for the reflective action of consciousness, where you say, all right, I'm going to stop being in the present moment. I'm going to kind of suspend being in the present to think about this experience I've just had and other experiences that relate to it, and put these things all together. And so I think that's something else that this the Hollywood culture and the Netflix culture especially, just keep watching. There's always something else out there. There's always something else out there. I remember when Netflix started, and you'd have to wait 2 or 3 days for that DVD to go out to Netflix and then send you the next one in the mail. And even then, that gives you a little bit of time to say, oh, I just watched this movie. Let me reflect on it. Now, forget it.
That's the bombardment. And as you started speaking on this right now, what you were saying, the main word that just bam took up everything was business, or as I like to pronounce it, breaking it down, busyness, because that's what business is. Film, television, Netflix, Disney Plus, all these things, it's a business. But what kind of business? What is it? It's not just for the CEOs to become multi-millionaires, multi-billionaires. It's a matter of keeping everybody busy. It's a busyness. So you talk about the present, being in the present. The skill is being in the present and being able to extrapolate the message and sit there with what you just saw, what you just heard, feel the emotion, contemplate and all that in the present. Yes. But when the present ends, all right, just finished 10 episodes of this, so that season's done. Next, boom, it automatically, they don't even let you sit through the credits. They have it automatically. Oh, next show recommendation starts in 10, 5, 3, 2, boom. So you don't even, okay, here's the next one. And here's the next one. So that's another form of busyness, just to keep people busy. And then you die. And guess what? You never contemplated. You never took the messages. You never critically thought about what you saw and experienced. So yeah, that's all by design, is to keep people going. Like I said, a movie buff. Yes, kind of raised as a movie buff, but yet, yeah, I'd see a movie and I was like, oh, damn, that was good. I'd sit at night, like for an hour or so later, man, what did I just, that was so scary. That was so scary. Oh, that was so exciting. Oh, that was so sad. You still had time to contemplate it, and it would, bounce around in your head. But now it was like, oh shit, I'm so beat because I just got off work. Then I binge watched this show. Then I had to do the laundry. Then I went to bed. Then I woke up and did it all over again. Constant busyness. So yeah, that's what I think about that. Is it's by design to keep people busy, and that's when you need to stop. That's where you have free dominion, or attempt to have some dominion. And what's dominion? Rulership. So it ain't rulership about others and controlling yourself. You need to control yourself right now. Netflix, Disney Plus, the movie theaters, TV shows, the music, the radio station, everything's dominating you. Everything, boom, 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 boom. Got to go to work. Got to do this. Got to do this. You're not even ruling yourself. There's no self-dominion. You have no free dominion, let alone self-dominion. And that's where you need to slow down and stop it. Like, okay, you know what? I don't need to watch all these shows today. I did this show, this movie. Let me see what the message was. Break it down, contemplate it, share it with some others. Fine. And then tomorrow, this weekend, I'll do the rest. But people don't have that kind of self-control. And that's by design.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and that's one of the things that I really like about, to tie back into some of your work and what you've been doing. That's one of the things I really like about the Can You Handle the Truth in Music, is it's not like the radio. I mean, first of all, you're hearing songs that you would never hear on the radio. But it's a song and then a discussion about the song. It's a song and then, okay, so we've just experienced this thing. What jumped out? What can we apply? And just that whole idea of taking a second or a minute or 10 minutes or an hour to talk about a 3-minute song. you're going to get as much out of, if not more out of, really diving into how it relates to the other experiences around you than you will out of a 3-minute listening to a song. So that's a really, that's just a neat, I love, really, really big fan of that. And I encourage people to go check it out. It's a great thing to have on. It's one of those things where I first started listening to it thinking, oh, this is really cool. It's music. I can have it in the background. And then I realized as I'm working or doing something, I stopped doing whatever it was I'm doing because the song's over. And now I'm so interested in the discussion. This is kind of dangerous to put on in the background. It's not really a background. Thanks. Discussions are so good. But encourage people to check that out. It's really a neat concept. And I kind of wish,
again, credit goes to Francesco. He's the one that wanted to do that one. He got inspired by Mark Devlin with Mark Devlin's Sound of Freedom. Mm-hmm. So yeah, again, that's Mark Devlin, DJ, puts music out. Then from hip hop and everything, just conscious music. All right. And then Francesco's like, oh, maybe I can add a little something. Let's go ahead and play a song and then talk about it. So yeah, and just that's how things grow and evolve. You don't just copy and paste, mm-hmm. Cookie cutter, just do the same thing, do the same. No, some things work, and you might be able to see where something might, oh, hey, I can add a little something here, and it just becomes something else. It's like that classic saying, we all stand on the shoulders of giants. Like right now, I like to just say rest in peace. I guess Jordan Maxwell mm-hmm. recently passed away. See, so that's someone that I know I got a lot of information from. Absolutely. Didn't agree with everything, and it wasn't a top to bottom 100%. Like, yes, praise him and his word is, no, but he did help along the way, as did, Jan Irving, as did freaking Michael Tsarian, as has David Icke, as has Mark Passio, as everybody. And we don't need to agree with everything they say, but we take pieces here, pieces there, and the truth we start chipping away here. Like, look, this is what resonates with me. This is bam, and that's it. And then we keep building onto it. Look. Right now, the One Great Work Network, 2-3 years ago, what? Who? What is that? Now, look, here we are. You heard us. You see us. We communicate, and we're doing this. We're building on more. And someone else down the line is going to see and hear this stuff. And if they have the right consciousness and creative capability, they're going to build on more. And, and that's an expression of love, the expansive force. See, because this is all done out of love, not fear. Like, dude, we got to get this out because, oh my God, I don't want to be a slave anymore. No, it's about, dude, this slavery sucks. And since I love myself, first and foremost, not in a satanic, selfish way, is I am love. I love myself. I want to be free and joy, but I love you. I want you and your family, my children, everyone to be free. And this is out of love. That's why we're doing this. So it's not out of fear. It's about love. And there's more stuff out of love, that areas that we need to go to that really pisses me off about how we're holding back. And it's stuff that we can get into. Again, films show it all the time, and people, yeah, get that mother. All right, we need to do that in the world. Whoa, hold on now. But again, that's something else we can touch on. But yeah, so
that ties in perfectly to kind of where I was going with hyping the Truth in Music podcast, because I was watching listening to Volume 8, and you brought up the notion in the first, I think it was after the second song actually, and in the first couple of songs, but a notion that, like, just kind of, I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, I never really, I mean, I knew that it makes sense, and it was like, obviously it experienced it, but I never, again, like earlier when we were talking about, we hit on the causality and the consequentialism of, obfuscating and misdirecting with these narrative structures, but just I'd never really put these words to it. But you kind of brought up the notion that people are always passively seated or laying down, or always very sedentary when taking in movies and that, that media. And that's not the earth-shattering observation. The earth-shattering observation for me, or the breakthrough moment for me, was, and so then when you see that, you're physiologically, psychophysiologically kind of conditioned to think, if something is happening where there's like a hero moment that might be coming up, the physiological state I'm used to being in when witnessing that is not one of standing up and being active. It's one of seated sedentary passivity. So that to me was just like a yes, that's part of the reason I think why we are seated in dark theaters, and as opposed to saying something like where I made that reference to seeing the minstrel show, seeing that traveling band of performers, where they're doing it in a town square type area, an open area, and there's not necessarily places for people to sit, and you're standing and maybe walking around, and there's music, so there might be dancing as well, and there's just different ways of interaction, almost a festival type atmosphere, as opposed to just, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to be passive, and then if something heroic happens, it'll be happening out there. So that was I just thought that was a really insightful thought and insightful way to look at the whole way in which we intake that media.
Yeah, you got me thinking of the word activity. What you're describing as activity going on. Things are happening. So hence active activity. So it correlates with that. Whereas when you're watching a movie, all this stuff is happening, nothing's moving around you. The only thing moving around you is the hand from the popcorn bag to your mouth and from the drink to, that's the only activity happening, really, So it's like, yeah. And you talk about like what we talk about, genetic memory, DNA memory, cellular memory. So all that kind of relates to that when action, rebellion, and all that is perceived on a screen, now your body is programming it as inactive. I'm just sitting here. That makes a connection. That's a form of programming, And then it is interesting, like you said, when you're watching it out at like in a circus or at some festival and there's activity, you're walking, you're not really sitting, you're standing there watching what's going on. There's some form of activity with that. And like you said, movie theaters and now, yeah, it's sitting at home. And this lockdown was big for that. So now you're not even active of standing up, walking to a theater or driving to a theater and walk. No, you just get up out of bed. And some people don't even get up out of bed. Just grab the remote, click, stream, and you're there. No activity required. Just the movement from turning on the device to stream. I don't need to go to the movies. Look, HBO Max is premiering all the new movies in the theater and online. So I don't even have to go anywhere. Yay, this is so great for me. Is it really? That's along the same lines as stimulus checks. There's something, it sounds nice. It's like, oh shit, money's coming for no, there's a bad consequence down the line. Oh, movies, now it's all streaming. I don't need to go to the movies anymore. Like, really? So now no interaction, no physical activity of walking somewhere or of seeing people face to face. And no, now you just sit at home. There's a negative consequence coming down the line for this,
Yeah. And it takes me to somebody who I think was an extremely important figure in the American storytelling structure and milieu, not just from a film standpoint, but certainly from a theater standpoint. And he got his start really in the theater, which was Orson Welles. And in the 30s, Orson Welles was maybe one of the most sought after theater directors and actors in the world, certainly in the US and London, but one of the most sought after theater folks. And something that he would say, before he really got into being more exclusively in movies, but one of the things that he wanted from his theater productions was he wanted angry, lust-filled theater goers. And what he meant by that was he wanted people leaving the production arguing with each other and feeling and it speaks to the whole idea that if you're sitting alone by yourself or even just with your spouse or partner watching a thing and then you go on to the next thing, there's not that sense of, look, we got up, we got dressed, we scheduled it with our friends, with a group to go see this thing. And then when it was done, we'd leave and we'd spill out into the streets and into the cafes and we'd argue about what we saw and we'd discuss and debate and have the whole experience of the night was, yeah, we're going to see this thing, but then we're going to have this whole interaction with the other people around us seeing it and discussing it and we might get angry about it, and we might be, lustful for our, opinion on how this impacts us, or why this was important, or why this character was right, or that character was right. And we might get angry about it, but it's because we are passionately exploring the concepts and ideas that we've just encountered in this again, crafted narrative experience of the theater. And certainly that's less so the case sitting in a darkened movie theater, especially when you're just showing up and then, going home. But absolutely non-existent if you're sitting alone in your apartment, which is something that during lockdown and I didn't get a chance to do it but a couple of times, and I always kind of went, I should have done it more. But the idea that you could hop on with a couple other people thanks to Zoom, and everybody watching the same thing in their personal space, but being connected and being able to interact over the internet while doing that, was always it was a neat way to go, you can still kind of have that experience, if you have kind of a watch party with some folks. But it's a little harder to coordinate and not as easy as just sitting there and HBO maxing your TV. So,
and that is a way of kind of using the system against them. It's like, oh, look, stay home, stay safe, stay connected. What? You're separating it. Okay, well, fine. We'll use your technology to share information. Exactly. Be like, you see how these motherfuckers are making us have 4 or 5 people at the same time. We're still connected, but we're talking about you, establishment. We're sharing ideas thanks to you. Ha ha ha. So yeah, it could be used, against them. It was interesting listening to what you were talking about with the movie theaters. Here's again, not just busyness about keeping us busy, but this is where the moviegoer, now we're just consumers. It's just to consume, oh, it's Friday, new movie, go take it in. Yeah, I saw that, go home. Next Friday, oh, new movie. Yeah, I was there, I saw that, go home. You're just, just a regular routine of just go, here's the new product, go see it and then go home. Go see it and then go home. Go see it. Yeah, like you said, it's not a thing of like, oh, what message was there? Let's sit around. Oh, let's go to the cafe next door. Just get a little tea or some coffee, something. No. It's just, oh, the new Spider-Man. Oh, I did that. Oh, the new Batman. Oh, I did that. Oh, the new Bond movie. Oh, I did that. No, we're just now professional consumers of the film industry, and that's how they maintain their business of profit. Like, we got to keep putting out stuff that's going to keep them interested. Oh, the action people, they got something for them. Oh, the LGBTQ people, oh, here we got something for them too. Oh, we got the woke people, oh, we got something for them too. But just keep them coming, sit down, take it in and go home, and go home. It's like a production line,
and then when you do have that, because usually what happens is, I'll take the new Batman movie from, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, remember it came out recently. People go see it, and then they, meet each other around the water cooler or wherever. Oh, did you see the new Batman movie? Yeah. What did you think? I liked it. And then that's it. And I even get into this, or have a tendency to not get into the deeper aspects of it with folks. And, something I know better than to be doing, but to say, okay, yeah, you liked it. Yeah, you didn't like it. Well, why? Tell me why. Tell me what about it. Tell me, really.
I don't know. It was just different from the Ben Affleck. Exactly. Or I like the Christian Bale one.
Exactly.
I like Tim Burton one. That's
it didn't make me feel a certain. Well, I don't. Why didn't it make you feel that way? Why did it? Ask the next question. And I certainly let people off the hook with, oh, I just didn't like it that much. Well, why? I don't know. I just preferred, like you said, I preferred the other versions or this director or whatever. Oh,
this one was too dark. He was too bland. It was too dark and gritty. Like, that's what it's supposed to be based on Detective Comics. Oh, really? Well, that's not my thing. Well, I guess if you're into comic book things, I guess you really.
Why?
One thing that stood out to me.
Why did they choose to make it dark and gritty as opposed to not?
Yeah, exactly.
What's the next question? But go on. What stood out?
What stood out to me, Mr. H Reviews. He's a YouTube guy out of the UK, and he did an interesting video. He dropped something. I was like, well, duh, no shit. Are you okay with all the cursing, swearing, or you kind of
whatever the fuck?
I got kind of caught on with Mark Passio. It was like, dude, we had him on sanitizing and he wasn't cursing. Come on, we could. I was like, no, on my show I like going, but on other people's show respect, I was like, damn, maybe I should start doing that.
No,
like,
it's totally fine. What cracked me up when I saw Mark on that interview is it was after listening to Joe for 2 minutes, you're like, clearly nobody gives a shit about what words we're using from that. Yeah, so please, by all means.
Yeah, but Mr. H reviews, this guy, he mentioned something about the Batman. I was like, duh, I think I had already seen it twice and this was over my head. So the third time I saw it, I was like, yeah, it's true. They mentioned dates in the Batman. You've seen the Batman?
Not the new one, no.
Okay.
But
so anyway, it takes place during, I won't try and spoil anything. It takes place, during a certain time. He says, he's keeping like a journal. It's only Batman year 2. So he's keeping a journal and he says a date. It's like, it's October 31st. Everybody's wearing their mask outside, blah, 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 blah. And the story happens, all this stuff. And there's a major battle, the big fight, revelation, all this stuff happens. And then the next day he's writing the journal and he says, November 6th, da, 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 da. So you're like, wow, it's been a week. But then like, wait, the big battle and everything happened on the 5th of November. Remember the 5th of November. So in the movie, the big fight, the big revolutionary kind of thing happened on the 5th of November. I was like, wow, that's pretty smart how they weaved in there November 5th, with V for Vendetta or V or Guy Fawkes. I'm like, okay, see, that's the kind of stuff. Be like, yeah, but did you notice? Yeah, it's all dark and it wasn't Ben Affleck or Christian Bale's back. But did you notice that little correlation there with the 5th of November? It's like, oh shit, that's right. So I wanted to point out, that's when you're kind of paying attention to things. And even I missed that. And when he mentioned it, that YouTuber, I was like, duh, that was fucking brilliant. Perfect how that was worked in there. Think about the whole picture in there, that it starts on a certain day, the story is going, and the big climactic fight happens on the 5th of November. And there are people that don't even know what that means, 5th of November. Like, yeah, so what's important about November 5th? It's like, wow, okay.
Yeah.
And they might be wearing the anonymous mask. They're like, I don't know what it means. Like, huh?
Yeah. And it ties into something too that kind of goes back. I think this was before we started recording. That no, I think we were talking about this in the recording. But anyway, the idea of the lore of some of these movies, the parts of the story that are inherent to the story itself, but aren't necessarily given to the audience as like an obvious part of the story. Like, yeah, they're giving you the context to allow you to discover that happened on the 5th of November without directly telling you on the 5th of November, the following thing happened. But so that's an aspect that when people talk about, well, no, there's not, you're reading too much into these movies. You're reaching. The level of control, the level of coordination, the level of care that's put into the thoughts, the whole concept of the story, of these stories, of any story, the narrative that you're actually getting is just one slice of that. And I think back to the DreamWorks universe and some of these folks on YouTube who, have these master theories about how DreamWorks, all the movies tie into one another in some way, or Pixar, has this whole universe. And, I think a lot of people's initial reaction is like, like you said, you're reaching. But the whole point behind DreamWorks, particularly with Spielberg, Geffen, and Kleinman,
Katzenberg.
Yes.
SKG was the initials. Spielberg, Katzenberg,
that these guys founded DreamWorks was because they realized that the only way to control every aspect, every possible thing in every frame of a movie is to animate the whole thing top to bottom. And since they started doing that in the late 90s, since DreamWorks and Pixar started creating the entire universe and creating a way of making films in such a way that they could control everything that's on in every frame of every movie, that started to translate or other folks started doing that as well and started to really, we can really take control. And I think in the last 20 or 25 years, for those paying attention, you can really see, and it goes into some of the other themes and how the timeline's been similar, but that the idea that that just so happened to be the 5th of November, oh, that was just an accident, you're reading too much into it, that's all a thing of the past. The idea that there are things in movies now that weren't specifically necessarily meant to be there, that's a thing of the past. You know, the idea that in the Wizard of Oz, in the original cut of the Wizard of Oz, there's supposed to be the silhouette of the dwarf lollipop actor, whoever it was, you know, was hanging themselves, and somehow there was a shadow, and that was unintentional or intentional or whatever. The idea that something like that could get into a movie today as an accident is completely ridiculous. More and more these directors and filmmakers are producing a story in such a way where there is all these things going on. There's this whole universe that's created around this story, and this is the narrative line that you're getting as the audience. But with a careful eye, because they've constructed this whole thing, they've then therefore allowed the whole universe to dictate exactly what parts of things are being seen, and that seeps in. And so the idea that the 5th of November thing could be anything other than intentional at this point, to me, is pretty ridiculous. You know, this is 25 years of filmmakers crafting better and better ways to intentionally control every aspect of the story. And so that's something to me that, oh no, it's just a movie. There's no way that's the whole point. That's the whole point, is to tell the story in such a way where there's so much more going on if people want to look into it.
And this ties in now, listening to you, how, again, I don't know if obfuscation is the proper word, but yet it creates people, the movie going audience, the regular moviegoer himself creates obfuscation within himself, because the only thing that they remember from way back then in the 60s, 70s, 80s, more or less, were the sequels. So you got Friday the 13th 1, then 2, then 3, then 4. These are connected. Halloween 1, then 2, 3, okay, was its own special thing. And then 4, the Bond movies. Okay, everything is sequels. Those are connected. But like you said, then you get DreamWorks and these guys allegedly, you know, or Pixar or whatever, trying to connect things and people looking for things. No, if you have to look for it and it's not obvious, you're reaching. Now you're digging into it, because if they did it, they'd let us know, wouldn't they? I mean, they did sequels. They named it Friday the 13th Part 1, Friday the 13th Part 2. And now with the MCU, the reason it's so big in the MCU is because people think they're smart, because it's resonating now with I see what they did there. I stayed for the mid-credit scene and the post-credit scene, and I'm smarter than other people because I see how it's connected. See, your regular moviegoer wouldn't know that. It's like, no, the only way you think it's gonna be connected or is if they tell you that's it. If they make it obvious, that's the only time it exists. You know, you don't think that they secretly have been doing this all along and connecting things and leaving it up to you for the intellectual ones or intelligent ones, not just intellectual, but the intelligent ones to figure this out. And, you know, my programming, I have to admit, I have been programmed, because since you said DreamWorks and you said SKG, this is what's been bouncing around in my head. And tell me if you recognize this. Dun, 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 dun. Da, 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 dun, 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 dun. What is that? That's the DreamWorks theme.
DreamWorks, yeah.
And then if you look at the logo, what's the logo? I was thinking about it. What could that symbolize? You got the moon, you got the kid sitting on the moon with the fishing rod, and he throws it down there. Like, okay, whatever. No, what's that mean? They're putting a hook. They're fishing for time. They're trying to get you to bite on the hook. They're fishing for you. They're getting your attention. That's what that symbolizes.
And
it's
they're
like,
doing
holy shit.
They're doing it from, you know, the place where the fisherman is resting is in the subconscious. Because he's in the moon, and the moon is a subconscious aspect. so yeah, it's they're fishing.
Yeah, he's laying back and he's
They're
not like
fishing-
actively like he's just
Yeah.
it's a kid and he's just
Yeah,
leaning
it's not
back
like,
in
hey,
the
we're
art,
right in your face.
the
It's-
roundness of the moon, and he just throws it down there and he's just fishing.
It's coming
Just
from the
fishing for you.
subconscious, archetypal symbol. That's an excellent, yeah, that's a very good point. And the MCU is a big one. We've talked about, Boris and I have talked about in a fairly early episode, maybe 4 or 5 of Make Art Not Friends, just the whole idea of the hero worship, the MCU, and kind of how it's taking all of the myth structures and smashing them into one, where you've got, the Norse mythology, you've got transhumanist hero worship, and the merging of man and the machine, and you've got now it's got
American propaganda, who was the big one. Captain America, it's all good and right because Captain America, the morals, and
you've got
language.
You've got Black Panther, for that, the minority stuff, and then you've got all these things. But hearing you talk about that and kind of applying the MCU, and the lore and finding, and I've got to pay attention, I've got to see this, end credit scene and this and that, and then tying that back to the busyness of this. Now it's not only do you have to kind of look at the movies a little more closely, but now you have to watch every series, and some of them are on Paramount, and some of them are on Peacock, and some of them are on Netflix or whatever, however that goes. And so now you've got to subscribe to all these different services just to get every little jot and tittle and crumb that might somehow connect you back. And now you're wading through the minutia to see, is Ant-Man really tied to Captain America in this way or that way, and so it's now you're not only drawing people into wade through minutia and wade through details, but doing so in such a way where now you can plant details that don't really matter, that don't have a greater significance, that don't actually bring people closer to a greater understanding of the world. It's just going, I discovered that this person and this person were friends when they were kids, or something stupid.
That fuels what? The narcissism in the person. Oh, you don't know everything. Oh, you don't have Disney Plus, huh? Oh, you didn't watch WandaVision? Right. You didn't watch
right.
Falcon and Winter Soldier? You didn't watch what's another one? What If? You didn't watch Hawkeye? Oh, you didn't? Oh, I watched those. Yeah. I know everything. Oh, I know how all that connects.
Yeah.
See, and it depends on the consciousness that's observing it. I've watched all that. I don't have Disney Plus. Hey, don't come after me, but yeah, there's alternate ways of getting stuff online. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But to fuel and satisfy my knowledge and curiosity, and hey, shit. Francesco and I sat for hours, like 4 or 5 episodes, doing our observations on the MCU. So it's like, I'm part of me, the movie buff, is entertained, and I want to know the story and follow it. But I'm also on the lookout, like, what subliminals, what Easter eggs are in here, or what messages are they putting out here? Because some of them peak pretty well, and it's like, God dang, that's everybody. Hell, ding, ding, ding! Everybody, look at what they just said here. Captain America, Winter Soldier. He's right there talking to Nick Fury. He says, "This is not about protecting. This is about fear." Bingo! So there's a lot of things in some of these films that are like, yeah, you should pay attention. But yeah, see, I've watched all the Disney Plus shows and stay current and all the connections. Someone in narcissism would be kind of like, you don't know, you didn't watch this and that. And that's what it fuels for some people. Mm-hmm. And then some is like, no, the knowledge, just okay, take it all in. And what are they doing? There's positive stuff here, positive stuff there, more obfuscations, again, like something like WandaVision. I don't know if you've seen it or whatever, but certain Wanda, emotional trauma, this and that, and she does some bad stuff to a whole bunch of people and all this stuff, and like, she's the bad guy. Hello, she's the bad guy. But then they twist it at the end where one of the other good guys like, they'll never know what you sacrificed for them. It's like, what sacrifice? She was a freaking villain. She tortured these people, whatever. But since we're following her, oh, appeal to emotion. It's like, oh, see, again, these are the things that you can sit and watch it. And if you just follow the story, be like, oh, yeah, oh, wow, that was so good. That, oh, man, yeah, I feel for her. It's like, no, Stan, look, again, more obfuscation, having you feel emotion for the villain, someone that traumatized people. There's wrong stuff going on here, and they're making you feel bad about it or good about it. It's like, what the heck?
Yeah, and then you get to, there's a lot of that going on, that obfuscation of good and evil. In the last 10 or 15 years or so. I think that, I always come back to that, the idea that there is such a concept as an anti-hero is a tricky one. And then even that concept, is as delicate a needle as that is to thread, has become completely,
I say it's a play on words. I say it's a play on words.
Yeah. And you go from the anti-hero, which again, it's a tricky concept, but and then you go to somebody like Walter White and Breaking Bad. And people, oh, I was rooting for him. He was an anti-hero. No, he was a bad guy. He did a lot of bad things. He was not a good guy. They just told you the story in such a way where they set it up for you to be rooting for him. And they set it up in such a way for you to be rooting for evil. And now, granted, there was really no good guys in that show. That's not what that show was about. That show was about how once you kind of start descending down that road, you start surrounding yourself, the energy that you put out then comes back to you multi-fold. And if you start trying to solve your problems with violence, then you surround yourself in a world where the only solution you can see is violence. And just walking away is not something you could possibly consider. Anyway, so to take the idea that there could be an anti-hero with redeeming qualities that you could learn something from, and kind of start to redeem yourself out of that forgiveness of the bad decisions that you've made, and turning that kind of, this is the way I used to be, and this anti-hero has helped me identify a way that I could make better decisions. Now you've gone to saying where this anti-hero is good because he's evil. And it's the complete obfuscation of right and wrong. It's the complete twisting of that a concept, and it's a complete moral relativistic way of viewing the world. And more insidiously is that creeping into the narrative structure and being touted as something that, oh yes, look, evil people are good people too.
It's justification. I think is a word that fits in there too. Justify stuff. Well, because, come on. But thinking about the word anti-hero was like, wait, well, that's somewhere where, remember how we were talking about, being in the present. Okay, you took that in. Now let's dissect that. Let's contemplate that. Yeah, the anti-hero, they just throw that term. Oh, he's an anti-hero. So, well, he's a hero. Just throw the anti in there. Like, no. Anti-hero, I think, like the language of the birds or play on words, is it's not a hero. Somewhat you're used to seeing hero. Think of Superman with the cape, Captain America with the shield. Anti-hero, it's someone that I think means someone whose appearance, the package, does not fit what a hero is. It's an anti-hero, somebody that looks like a bad guy, but yet they do some things that are heroic. So that's the anti-hero, but yet all that gets lumped in. Oh, it's a hero. It's like, no. Even somebody, even like Hitler or Muammar Gaddafi or Mao or whatever, if they had children, they kind of may have cooked some rice and beans and fed their child. They did a good thing, but they were still an evil person. So it's like very interesting how all this, again, more obfuscation goes on, like, woo, it's all magic just to blur everything up. And you need to stop that and be like, no, wait, what does this actually mean? What are they actually trying to tell me with this? So yeah, it's interesting. A lot of the anti-hero thing. I just saw a YouTube video reaction to Venom 2, Let There Be Carnage. That's another character. Oh, anti-hero, Venom. Like, yeah, it's an alien that likes eating humans' heads and stuff like that. But, oh, well, if he starts just eating the bad guys, it's like, okay. It's like, but yeah. So again, very interesting how all this is kind of blurred, these lines,
Yeah. I don't want to get into Joseph Campbell right now, but that's, one of the whole things about to me about the whole hero's journey and the formalizing of that and how everybody's being, for the last 50 or so years, that the hero is what Joseph Campbell said the hero is, and that somehow the things that he decided to pluck out of some historical stories therefore make all stories fit into that model or not. And the only way that anyone's ever a hero is to check the list off of the hero of a thousand faces, which is not, it's dehumanizing and anyway, but that to me was one of the kind of first obfuscations of, well, there's good guys and bad guys, right? Well, no, there's heroes and villains. Wait, so it's not about whether you're good or not, it's about whether you're heroic or not. That's not the same thing. That's not
because a bad guy can do a good thing, and a good guy may do a bad thing intentionally or by accident. Be like, oh shit, the choice, the reaction, the whatever, the heat of passion or something, like, oh shit, they weren't in control or fully, they just reacted and like, oh man, something bad happened. It was a good person, but they ended up doing something bad. And by the same token, a bad person ended up doing something good. But you're right, being a hero and a villain, that actually is more distinguishable. You can distinguish that as opposed to, a good guy, bad guy. It was like, I don't know. There was something else I was gonna say, that there's a new Liam Neeson movie coming out, and it's called Memoria, something like that. And he's an assassin. Duh, surprise, surprise. But he's getting older and he's starting to forget things. All right.
Okay.
And he's taking meds, he's starting to take pills, whatever. And, so he's starting to forget what he does or why he did it, but he takes the pill, remembers. Okay. But towards the end of the trailer, there's a line that he says that I was like, that's pretty interesting that he says this line. Something to the effect of, when you die, something about it's not how you die makes you good or bad. It's what you did before or while you were alive that matters. Something like that, something to that effect. And, that's kind of true. And yet, when you come to talking about good guys, bad guys, heroes, and villains, it's like the redemption thing. And there's another word I want to bring up, but it's like people that their whole lives or in the movies, are always doing this bad thing, bad thing, bad thing, bad thing. Darth Vader, for example. Oh, bad thing, bad thing, bad thing, bad. But then at the end of Jedi, oh, he threw the Emperor down and saved his son. Hey, he's a good guy. It's like, wait, so does the one act at the end, does that now push aside all the evil things, all the other people he choked and killed and everything? Oh, now he's a good guy. It's like, how does that actually work? What's up with that? So it's still a bad guy, but at the end, he did one good thing, or he did the right thing at the end. But does that make him a good guy? Or does that make him a hero? See, these are all kind of the moral questions to put in there. And the word I wanted to bring up is when you look at someone's story like that, or someone who's still alive and they did bad things, and then they do a good thing, or maybe start doing good things from then on. Is that part of what the word atonement, is that where that comes in? And then I looked at the word atonement, and it's at one mind, at atone, ONE, at one, meant mind. So at one mind. So how does that work? Atonement, the rest of your life, or you're trying to make atonement, trying to come to one mind with what you've done, with the all is one mind. So I think that's kind of interesting, atonement, and how that fits in all the time when you think about stories like this, that, oh, I did bad. Now I'm just trying to do the right thing and make up for the evil I've done. I'm trying to atone for my thing. It's like, to become at one with. So all that's what came to mind now of what we were talking about. Like,
that's cool. I really like that point, and I think that's a good idea. And I think it goes back to, the initial obfuscation of even good guy, bad guy, before you even get to hero villain, which are different concepts. But I think one of the things that narratives have a tendency to do, and do more and more as we get into the modern day, is make it so that this is the good guy, this is the bad guy, and you think in terms of good guys and bad guys rather than in terms of right action and wrong action.
I was just going to say, it's not, we tend to identify it as an act that was done. Okay, this was done. He's a good guy. And then this was done. He's a bad guy. No, it's about how you live. This brings it back to something we brought up from the beginning: microcosm, macrocosm. So it's not just, oh, this one little thing he did makes him a criminal for life or makes him a hero for life, a good guy. No, it's about how you live. What's the total picture? If he's always been bad and done bad and done bad and done bad, oh, he did a good thing, and done bad. And that's the whole thing. That's who he is. Whereas if it's a good guy, always good, responsible, does the right thing. Oh, he messed up and did the wrong thing here. Damn, now he's corrupt. Oh, he took a turn to the dark side. Oh, wait. See, so I think that's important is, again, that big picture looking is like, how do they live? Who are they really? And you're defined by your actions, how you live, how you behave, not just by an act that you did here or there, and I think that's something missing when it comes to defining what these people are: good guy, bad guy, hero, or villain.
Yeah. And at that moment, that person has atoned, has become at one with mind, but that doesn't mean that they stay there
right
forever. Yeah. It's yeah, that's where they are. And that's, even the best of the good guys never make 100% right choices all the time, take 100% right action all the time. I mean, maybe they do because they're fictional characters, but that's one of the things where you can't apply what fictional characters do to real people necessarily in all circumstances.
Interestingly, this just came to mind again, just popped in here. I don't know. I saw recently, like last week, a reaction video to Unforgiven. Have you seen that film, the Clint Eastwood 1992 film Unforgiven?
Yes.
That, I think, is a film that fits perfectly into what we're talking about here. Because if you take Unforgiven, that character, they don't say it, but it's kind of hinted by the moviegoers and film historians, kind of like that's connected in a way to the trilogy, the Man with No Name trilogy. So like, what was it? Hang 'em High, for a few dollars more, a fistful of dollars, and The Good, the Bad, the Ugly. Those, he never had a name. They never said who he was, just the gunslinger, the stranger. But yet he did bad things. He was a killer, a gunslinger, but he helped some people. He did some good things here, and he was the good guy, but yet he was killing people. And then you take Unforgiven from, like, the Westerns were in the 60s, and then this was 1992. Here, he's older. He's not doing that anymore. He's like softer. He's got a family. His wife died, promised her to be good. So that atonement, to do the right thing. But then for money and to support his children, he takes a job to do what he used to do as a gunslinger. See? So again, is it a good person? Has he always been a bad person, a villain or something, and then just happened to do a couple of good things when he married and had children and raised them? Or, has he changed and trying to do the right thing? And that's what I think he did. He does say trying to do right by his wife. So trying to atone, trying to live the right, but then he has to revert back to the skills to right wrongs against, Gene Hackman and his crew. So it's very interesting how this movie, if anybody watches, I recommend it. Watch Unforgiven, especially if you've seen some of the older spaghetti westerns, to see that vibe of who he is as a gunslinger, and seeing this as an older person trying to live right, trying to do the right thing. And then when you need to access the sacred masculine or defensive use of force to right wrongs, does that make you a bad guy? Or are you reverting back to villainous ways? Or something? See, it's a very interesting dynamic to observe and break down. I'm sure you can make, a whole hour or two podcast breaking down Unforgiven and that spaghetti western connection as far as action and what, how does that identify a person? Are you good or bad? Or what? I think it's about how you live your life, period. If the big picture is you're doing the right thing, and sometimes you need to access the psychopath or use defensive force or use sacred masculine to do things, that doesn't make you a bad guy. That doesn't make you a villain. You're just doing what needs to be done for overall right, doing the right thing.